A few weeks ago, my brother went on a trip. The day he left at 5 p.m., we said bye to each other, and the moment he closed the door, I felt a sharp pain in my stomach, and I got a flash of about 2 seconds where I saw him badly hurt trying to ask for help in his car. My heart dropped, and I had cold sweat. Revision came to mind. Immediately I said, if he was attacked, then I'll imagine him winning against his opponent. He is a martial artist, so I genuinely believe he won in my imagination. Then I said, if that was a car accident, then I'll imagine his car protected by God's light, shockproof, and feel the feeling of relief knowing he is safe. The next day at 7 a.m., he calls me and tells me he was in a car accident. My heart dropped. I asked if he is unharmed. He said yes. He sent me pictures of the car wrecked. The entire driver's side of the car is crushed. A truck literally squeezed his car on the highway on the bars. Luckily, the truck stopped squeezing at the right time and slipped away. He came out with not even a scratch, nothing. I cried of happiness. I know that if I reacted in fear and kept worrying, worst could have happened. But during the day, luckily I had a full schedule. I was able to completely drop the incident from my head. When it popped up, all I could remember was him winning and the car being safe, and I would feel the relief. The future doesn't exist, we are the creator. The 3D is an illusion, a remnant of the past beliefs. It presents to you scary things, almost like to test your faith. But nothing is real unless you believe so. Me and SP had been on very bad terms for 2 months. We blocked each other, we didn't speak, and I even heard she said something bad about me in front of a few mutuals. 2 months into the no contact, I was having a very typical day. I was getting ready for bed and thought, why don't I revise the day, and in my revision, add a text message from SP into a part of the day. I did this for 2 nights. On day 3, she called while I was driving. I was just staring at the screen with my jaw dropped. I was so shocked, it was difficult answering the phone, so I just called her back when I got myself together. She wanted to see how I was and check in on me. This is the way I understood Neville's method. No scripting, no affirmation. I didn't try to achieve any certain feeling, all I did was just imagine. I have never tried revising something that happened a long time ago. I always revise the same day, and the reason for that is that it's so much easier to remember the events of today versus a long time ago. I also don't need to have a bad day in order to revise it. I can have a very good day, and make it even better. I look back on the day I had, and I try to see how it could have been better. I try to think of when it could have happened that would make it really natural. So if I wanted someone to say something to me, I think of when would it make sense for me to come into contact with this person, then I would think of how the conversation would go, and I rehearse it a few times to make it realistic, believable, natural for me. I lay down and get into a state akin to sleep. The position I'm laying down in doesn't really matter. I begin to replay the day in my head, but my visual is from my eyes. I don't imagine in a third-person point of view. I imagine in first-person point of view. So I can't see my own head or body. I begin to picture myself waking up looking at my ceiling for a minute, then I begin to get out of bed, do my morning routine and so on, until I get to the moment that I want to change and I change it to what I want. So for example, if I asked for a girl's number and she said no. In my revision when I ask she says of course. Or even better yet, I could revise it to where she insists that I take her number. Then continue on the day until I fall asleep. Side notes, I almost never finish the visualizing the whole day. I usually fall asleep before I can get to the end, but it still works. I was always hesitant to try revision because I thought it would be too much work to try and remember the whole day, but I was surprised that I ended up remembering so much detail in my day. I think when I start from the beginning and slowly move forward, the rest casually comes back to my memory. One of my caregivers abandoned me when I was a kid. For years, I didn't know where he was or where he lived. We didn't speak and had an estranged relationship. The few times we did have contact were very brief and matter of fact. Life was hard and I pretty much ended up raising myself. I worked jobs, took out loans, and put myself through college. After learning about the law, I knew I had to address this situation as it was severely impacting my self-concept. Last fall, I wrote down every meaningful event in my life and revised it so he was there, supporting me and loving me. It took me a little over a month to complete this task. It's also worthy to note that this was my first time using revision. My main goal was to change my inner state and my beliefs. I wasn't expecting any changes in my reality. To my complete shock, this person started reaching out and frequently. Soon, we were talking up to 3 times each week and having hour-long phone conversations. I wasn't lifting a finger or pursuing any of this. Furthermore, he supports me in a way that he never had before. He tells me he is proud of me and wishes there were words to express how much I mean to him. These are things I longed for my whole life, and I have to admit, it feels surreal to experience it in my 3D. In a closing sentiment, it's been over 6 months and the relationship has remained steady. Last night, he sent me a Bitmoji sticker with a big heart, which is something that would have previously been so out of character for him. I am convinced that I shifted into a new timeline or reality. Regardless, life is amazing and revision works. From 17 to 22, I dealt with intense depression, and I was in a toxic relationship. My mom and I used to make jokes that I will meet a wealthy handsome man who will help me step away from the current relationship. I discovered law of assumption in this period, and I made a list of everything I wanted plus a vision board. But I didn't know about Neville, and I wasn't consciously manifesting. I was 22 at the time, and suddenly my 2 friends from London knocked at my door. I live in a different country, and they live in London, but they have family here. They invited me to a party in London. I didn't have the money, but my intuition told me to say yes, and my friend offered to buy my plane ticket once I said yes. I met a handsome guy at this party, and we spent the weekend together with my friends. Let's call the guy Mark. Mark was the best friend of one of my friends in London. The connection we had was insane. I flew back to my country, and I immediately broke up with my ex. This was a long time coming, so he wasn't surprised. Meeting someone I had such a strong connection with gave me the final push to finally step away from the terrible relationship. Just like my mom and I used to joke about. Mark lived in a different country, far away from my country. I called Mark, telling him that I loved our time together, but I had to give myself time to get over my 7-year relationship. Plus, he was in an open relationship with someone else, and I didn't want to be anyone's side chick. After meeting him, I somehow knew in the back of my mind we would end up together, a bit of living in the end kind of feeling. Please don't ask me why, because he lives in another country and I had no real reason to believe it. I didn't even know if we would meet ever again. As I said, I was aware of law of assumption at this time and made a list of things I wanted, but I wasn't actively doing anything to manifest consciously. So I spent 3 days with Mark in London, and then I stopped the contact. I thought about Mark a lot, and to soothe myself, I would visualize before bed a romantic story of meeting him again. To help me through the breakup and the loneliness I was feeling, I didn't do it actually to think it would happen. My living in the end feeling was a background feeling, a very slight feeling, not a conscious one. So I was doing sats without any attachments every single night after meeting him. I wasn't in a good mental space at all. I just came out of depression, and whenever I thought about Mark, my thoughts weren't that positive. I did not live in the end 24/7, I had no idea that this was a technique. I did feel like I deserved a better life and believed that anything was possible. Fast forward 3 months, I was at the airport to fly back to London to visit my friends once again. Of course, I was thinking about Mark. I look up to see my flight information. I see my flight and a second flight that travels to the city that Mark lives in. As a joke, I texted him, should I get on the second flight instead? He immediately told me that he has been dating other girls, but no one compares to the connection we shared that weekend and complimented me like crazy. After that, a week passed without any contact, and I was sad about it. I never stopped doing sats, though. It was a fun thing to do. Now, this is where things get crazy. Mark suddenly sends me a text a week later, do you want to go to the Maldives with me? I freaked out in joy, and my friend and I were jumping in the air. He sends me his credit card information to buy the flight. It was costly because it would be 24 hours of travel. No one had spent that much money on me before, and I don't even know him that well. I trusted this whole process because my friends from London have known him for many years and trust him. A few weeks later, I went to the Maldives with him. It was absolutely insane. I came from a low-income family and had many money issues even when I lived with my ex-boyfriend. I remembered that I once saw a movie with a Maldives scene, and I said out loud, "I will go there, and when I'm there, I will have made it," as a joke. I always had big dreams and ambitions. Now I was in paradise at an insane 5-star resort. We had a magical week, and we met again a few days later in London. He had broken up with his girlfriend in the 3 months while we didn't speak. In London, he asked me to be his girlfriend. In the next 3 years, we have traveled the world together. I moved to the country he lived, I got an incredible career position, and we got married. One time, I visited my home country, and my brother's dog ate my wallet. I found my manifestation list hidden away in this wallet. The list I wrote 3 years before, that I forgot about, all came true. Every single thing that I wanted. A few things on that list and vision board was: I am in a position where I never have to worry about money and can focus on doing what I love. I speak English fluently, which I learned because I left my home country. I am traveling the world. I am having crazy adventures all the time. I used a picture of a cool-looking water park that I didn't know the location of to represent this. Once I moved to the country my husband lived, I visited the water park of this city. Guess what? It was the same water park I used on my vision board. I got chills all over my body when I was standing there. I lived the dream life, married my loving husband, and was in a fantastic career opportunity for my photography. I was living in the most stunning luxury apartment and traveling to new countries every couple of months. I learned how to dive, surf, wake surf. I worked out up to 2 hours a day and ate healthy most of the time. Sounds pretty awesome, right? And yes, it was. It's not all a fairy tale, though. I was a very anxious person who just got out of depression. I had no idea about Neville, and I was a slave to my emotions and thoughts. I had a lot of healing to do with the traumas I went through in my youth and my last relationship. I started imagining all the things that could go wrong. In my relationships, in my career, etc. Not knowing I was creating precisely that, I started having panic attacks every week. I drank all the time and got a Xanax prescription to deal with high anxiety levels. I was full of guilt that even though my life was amazing, my past still haunted me. Just like I manifested my miracles, I manifested all the things that could go wrong as well. I didn't believe I was worthy of living this amazing life, so that's what I got. Slowly, my reality started reflecting how I was feeling. My husband and I broke up. I am now living back in the Netherlands and discovered Neville after the breakup. Everything makes sense to me now. I'm about a year into Neville's teachings, the lessons I've learned. Even though my overall state wasn't positive, I was able to manifest everything with SATs alone and the belief that anything is possible. I honestly reached the feeling of being together in SATs because it was simply a fun thing for me to do. Because my overall state wasn't positive, and I didn't do any SATs because I was already living my dream, I manifested our breakup eventually. I was using my imagination in fear and anxiety. All external things will not bring you happiness. I know everyone has different dreams, but I got all my external dreams to come true, and even more than I imagined. Yet, I couldn't fully enjoy all the abundance because of my internal suffering and lack of self-worth. I'm 26 now, and I had to start over with no money to my name. Which sounds depressing, but it's not. Once I discovered Neville, I no longer have an anxiety disorder or panic attacks. I used revision on my traumas, and I'm letting the old me die. I'm now able to apply his teachings and learning more and more. I've manifested all my dreams before, and I know it'll all happen again. My goals changed, but it'll all play out again.